Everyone, this is the Innovator's Mindset with Jennie Gyford. There we go. All right. I received this wonderful email from Jennie, who I've connected with over the years. She lives in Florida, is actually kind of like a neighbor now. I didn't know this, but we've connected in Florida, California. But she actually has a brand new book. It is called Teach Like the Floor is on Fire. It is available now. You can see the link down below in Amazon. So first of all, congratulations. I know it's a
Thank
big
you.
achievement whenever you write a book. So I know it's like the I'm reading kind of like about it. It's meant to be like kind of like an easy read, kind of
Yeah.
fun, maybe
Yeah.
joking around. Some of this maybe I think of one of my best mentors, and this is kind of like how I when I read the introduction, this is the first things I thought. She used to say to me, if you wouldn't laugh, you'd cry. And there's like some
Yeah.
of that. That fair? Like you're
That
like,
is very fair. Like
yeah.
you learn to laugh things off and not just education is funny everywhere you look.
Yeah, or you'd cry, or
Or you
or,
cry.
or
Yeah.
you'd cry. So, hey Jennie, before we get into the book, if you can just tell a little bit about who you are, what you do today, I think it's a really great place to start.
Sure. Well, I am super excited. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure.
I am a teacher now, full-time teacher at Cambridge Christian School, and I have taught public school for 27 years. This is my first year in a private industry, and I'm enjoying it. It's great. I also teach for two universities, National University and Alliant International University. Those are based in California. And so moving to Florida, I went remote, and I love working with the teachers who want to be teachers.
Mhm.
And so they're in the credential program and they're new, and I get to share some, very old experience
Right?
with them and kind of help them because my credential situation was a long time ago and things are not what we were learning. And so now it's kind of bringing people up to speed who want to come into education and really see if that's their passion.
I love that you said that because we were talking to someone. I can't remember who it was, but it really kind of struck me is like, when we were a new teacher, I think the people that were there 10 years ago could say, hey, when I was a new teacher, and their ideas were very relatable.
Yes.
And now, like, I can't use my experience as a new teacher to connect with current new teachers. And so I really
Right.
appreciate, and I'm sure a lot of brand new teachers of the profession would really appreciate that you said that because it is a very different field. So like how
Yeah.
is it, would you say it is different for someone coming into the profession now versus when you started, 5+ years ago, right?
Right.
Something like
Yeah.
that, right? So
Back in the 1900s.
right,
Um,
right. Nice.
honestly, a lot of it comes down to, I would say the first thing that's going to pop into my mind is kids.
Mhm.
The kids are different. The kids I was teaching back in when I first started um, didn't have so many distractions in their lives.
Yeah.
They didn't have, and I'm not just talking about social media and cell phones, it's distractions from life.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, as years have gone by, I've just heard heartbreak after heartbreak of stories that these kids are having to face today that are almost adult
Right.
situations, trauma and foster cares and abuse. I mean, my goodness, it's surprising they show up to school sometimes.
Mhm.
So just right there, they carry a lot more mental challenges, right? Like there's a lot in their head, and then you add on the factor of those device distractions and TikToks and videos. And I'm not against those things, but when used appropriately.
Right.
But when they're glued to them and it's become almost an addiction, then we lose them as teachers, and we're fighting against a force that is very hard to break, right? And that's why I call it an addiction with the
Yeah.
kids, is they got to get their dopamine fix kind of thing. But the other biggest factor is the workload put on teachers.
Mhm.
You know, when I first started, it was, hey, get the kids ready for one test. Get them ready for the state test, call it a day, have good grades. We didn't have computers, we didn't have LMSs, we didn't have Canvas or Google Classroom. Everything was good old paper written down in a grade book, the old fashioned grade books you could buy. Parents wanted to know their kids' grades. You could tell them like, well, email me and I'll let you know in 24 hours after I, average their grades manually. Things like that. We didn't have as many other things to learn and utilize that we are required to do now, and that's fine because it's with the changing of the times. But it was just different, and we also didn't see too many students with missing work or incomplete work. A lot of the kids took their time to try at least. And now we're kind of starting to see an evolution of students who are afraid to try because they're afraid to look like they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And, so they rather just shut down. And that's another barrier for teachers to try and overcome.
So like something I've really tried to identify, and you and I went to probably high school around the same time. But if you go back 20 years,
right,
and then you go back 20 years from that, the thing that I always argue is you and I went to high school where the time frame of the day is pretty much the same. I went to school in Canada, you went to school in California. It was going to be 8 to 2:30, 8:30 to 3, 9 to 3:30. It's going to be something like that, right?
Right.
It was that 20 years ago. It was that 20 years prior. It will be that 20 years from now. The concern that I have about that is the demands are always going up, but still in the same time frame of the school day. And that is the disconnect. And when I was in the middle of the night, I wake up and it's funny because I just wrote this last night. I was talking to someone. I do a lot of work with artificial intelligence, and I'm trying to I know it's like, hey, we need to think about this, but can't consume everything that we do. And I was speaking to someone. He reached out to me in September about a conference in February. And he said to me, hey, I want you to watch this video and include it in your talk with the school board trustees about AI. I'm like, by February, this will be obsolete. Like, this won't even be a thing right now. And so, one of my concerns right now is you're seeing all these people like AI, this thing. Oh, now you can do this thing. Now you can do this thing. Now you can do this thing. It's like, whoa, slow down. Like, how is this actually? And I think you kind of said it, that you're not against the technology, neither am I. But it is actually you have to really focus on how it's improving learning, not like, hey, I can make a cool image if I just say a word into Gemini. Okay, that's cool. Anybody can do that. But it's not necessarily making the kid any smarter. It's just becoming dependent upon this stuff. And it's all these AI gurus pushing the newest thing that just came out 3 seconds ago. And it's I am trying to just work within the 9 to 3 school day. Let's try to figure this out. So I really appreciate that you acknowledge that, right? Because that's probably something that you're seeing. I don't know how much you're seeing artificial intelligence being used in your schools or with your, the staff.
Or it's not being used. Right. So you have that factor too, oh my gosh, we can't have the kids on AI. I'm like, the kids can be on technology that has to be responsible.
Right.
And I always loved your quote that technology doesn't replace a teacher. Yeah. The day we are replaced with a computer, oh wait, we had that. It was called COVID.
Right. You're right.
And it did not go very well. And that was still with humans behind the screen. But I sat in California, I had 300 students at the middle school level on Zoom every day. It was a nightmare. My grades went horribly down. A lot of kids I never saw come on the computer. So I don't think we're looking at a world of computer-based teachers. But if you're going to utilize technology, we have to pull from it that's going to help our students understand things better. So when I'm teaching geometry and I can find something animated through Desmos or these other platforms that can manipulate figures, yes, I'm going to show it because that's a lot easier than me trying to draw it, and get them to, okay, now if you notice this corner is going to come all the way over here, it's hard to see that. So using technology wisely, even with the kids, using their cell phones. Kids had cell phones in my classrooms all up until this year. And that's just because at the school I'm at right now, we have a cell phone lockdown policy through the school day, which I really appreciate because I have their attention. But instead of fighting the technology, I would always just say, all right, let's get out our phones. You're going to use them as a calculator. You're going to use them as this. Things like that. And they would and I even had a charging station in my classroom, charge your phone. Yeah. But It was that you have to give a little to get them back,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get them to come back.
Well, and that like I'm a big advocate. I'm not an advocate of like banning the stuff because
Yeah.
they have to learn how to use it. Because
Yeah.
you're probably seeing, and maybe I'm wrong here. You're probably seeing new teachers who were like, "Oh, these students." I'm like, "So you see some of the new teachers, they're addicted too. Like they're obsessed with." And not even let's not even talk
Yeah.
about newer teachers. There's some
Yeah.
teachers that have been there for a while, and they're like, "Oh, these kids on their phones." I'm like, "Are you answering an email right now? Right? Like while we're doing
Yeah.
this, right?" So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that. The one thing that you mentioned is how I've talked about how technology will never replace great teachers. I was teaching at the time of Khan Academy, and when
Yeah.
that first came out, and it was like, oh, like this is the end of the teaching profession. I'm like, I don't teach like that. Like
Yeah.
if that's what you think teaching is, like it's a great supplemental resource, but it's not going
Exactly.
to replace me. Like I could maybe leverage it, but
Yes.
if you teach like that, then you should have a concern. But I was never. There is not one moment I'm like, oh no, oh no. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's like that might be a little bit helpful, but you're not connected with
Yeah.
anybody, and that's really powerful. You talked about some of the struggles. Students are a little bit different now. And before we got on here, and I'm going to be honest with you, you started talking about. I'm like, I don't want to hear about this too much because I want this for the podcast.
Okay.
And so you talked about kind of some of the different types of student maybe attitudes that you deal with
Yeah.
and kind of how you work through that. So kind of share some of that concept that you shared with me prior.
So besides your kids that are intrinsically motivated, right? They really want to do good in school. Those are the kids that we love. Those are the kids that, come to school almost every day. They're ready to learn, even if you have to kind of nudge them a few times, but they're overall like really great students. And then we have a separation, unfortunately. We have kids that come in with large learning gaps, right? Where they haven't learned much of that content for like 3 or 4 years. And they're placed into a classroom where we're expected to go at speeds that are almost unheard of with pacing guides. Like you said, within the same hour
Right.
of parameters,
Right.
I still get 45 minutes to teach you everything I can in 45 minutes and as fast as I can. But I have a student who really needs to go back 3 years to catch up to me. And so differentiation takes on a whole different ball game. And again, you have 45 minutes to get that poor kid to understand. So I like to call those kids my can'ts. They just can't do it. I can sit with them all day long and we would make small milestones, which is good. You're making progress, but it takes a lot of the teacher's time. And we don't have a lot of co-teachers. We don't have paraprofessionals in every room who can pull that kid aside and work with them so you can continue teaching. And I remember going through school, the one thing they always said is don't teach to the whole class, right? You got to teach to all different types of learners. And that's one thing I tell my university students is you have diverse learners. Like some are high, some are low, some are middle, some are this. You got to make lesson plans for all of that. But then how do you deliver that in 45 minutes? Right? So you have the can'ts. We can work with them. We can get them some extra support at the school. And then you have two subgroups that I think a lot of teachers are starting to see more of now. And this might be because of the declining attention span, the ability to sustain focus, the anxiety or stress they may be under, mental challenges, you name it. Sometimes it's just low academic confidence, right? They just don't think they're very smart. Well, they go into two groups for me. One group is the I won't pick up my pencil. I won't turn in any work. Just give me my F, leave me alone. I'm going to sit in this chair. Well, I in my book, I talk about how I especially try to manipulate those friends to get them to come on board. It takes a lot of finessing and a lot of almost kind of like killing them with kindness, right? Like you're overly nice to them and you really want to work with them. And they kind of start to look at you like, man, this crazy teacher will not leave me alone because they're so used to being left alone, right? A lot of classes, unfortunately, they're going to go in and I won't do it. I'm not going to do it. And the teachers go, okay. And so they became my buddy. I would go and sit at the desk next to them. I always left their desk next to them empty on the seating chart. And they became, I just pushed as much as I could. And then finally, they started to pick up their pencil. Finally, they started to move. And it wasn't that they didn't know what they were doing. It wasn't that they were in a can't. They were full-blown refusal. Mm-hmm. And so once I got them to start picking up the pencil, oh my goodness, the praises and the relationship building just started. And then they were on board. I had a lot of those kids who would write me letters at the end of the year, like, thank you for never giving up on me. And I was like, it was almost a challenge. Like, I've got to win this, like I can't be like, you can go in another person's class and sit there and sleep, but in my class, you're not going to.
Right.
But then you have those who love to disturb your class, right? We've always had class clowns or ones that come in a little off the tilt,
right.
Filter a little bit where you're like, okay, buddy, bring it down, turbo. But they're just gonna be the fun kids in the room, right? But now that fun has become almost a disrespectful fun.
Right.
They're coming in, they're cursing at teachers, they're throwing things across the room, they're starting weird fights in the class that blows everything up, and they're fighting with another student across the room. They're having these arguments, and the teacher management doesn't matter how long you've been teaching. I've dealt with it. Mm-hmm. And I've been teaching for very long. You would think I have my discipline plan, locked and keyed. No, because every moment these things catch on. And that's kind of where my title came from, was we feel like we're always doing something so fast that the floor must be on fire.
Right.
Because we have to quickly think, what am I going to do with this situation? What's going on over here? How do I deal with this? Do I call admin? Well, admin's at lunch. They're doing lunch duty. I can't call admin. It's all those things that teachers have to deal with still within 45 minutes.
Right.
And so what they tend to do is they come in, they cause a ruckus so they can be exited from the room. Mm. They'd rather not be there. Discipline is not a problem for them. They'd rather be suspended. They'd rather be at home doing what they want to do. So they purposely find a way to do it. And I call these friends, I do what I want. Because they come in and they do what they want at any expense. And unfortunately, that number is starting to grow. Mm-hmm. And I see it growing because we're not, as a system, an educational system, no one person in particular. This is a system problem that we are not following through with our discipline plans and missions that we have at the schools. Mm-hmm. And we're letting certain students run the schools.
I know a lot of people, like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm listening to you, and some people are going to be like, oh, you shouldn't say that. And a lot of people are like, she's telling the truth. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is, and yeah. It's not like there's a lot of things that go into a student doing that. I remember, actually, I coached basketball for years.
Yes.
And I remember distinctly, and I actually wrote about this years ago. There was one student who basically, he loved basketball, hated school. Mm-hmm. And I remember working with him nonstop because he was that kid that just didn't want to be there. And I know that he was better because the basketball was a little bit of a carrot for him, right?
Yeah.
And it was interesting because he was a great kid for me, but it wasn't a math classroom, right? It wasn't that at all. It was basketball. He loved it. And I could leverage that. Like, if I'm hearing about this in the classroom, right? And it shows you how much of a community is. Because I actually was an elementary teacher at the time. I was a high school basketball coach, but I was teaching at a different school in this small town. And he was the reports of the teachers like, hey, he's better than he was.
Yeah.
He's not like perfect.
Yeah. Right.
And it was interesting because we had made playoffs, and the second we were done, he's gone. He left. He quit school, and he struggled with that. But he lasted way longer because there is that community focus on that too. And it's something that if you pretend it's not a problem, then it's just going to get worse.
Right.
And that is, and I appreciate your like, hey, this is a reality, and there's ways
Right.
we can kind of come together as a community. There's ways that we can, support this outside. When you were talking about, because I would like actually say what was interesting when you were talking about that, I was kind of like in the middle of those last two groups when I was a kid in science in particular,
Okay.
and because when like you were saying this, and I was a nightmare in science in high school.
Yeah.
And one of the things, you keep saying 45 minutes. The difference between elementary and high school is you have time with the same group of kids all day.
All
High school is
day.
a
Yeah.
very different, and
Yeah.
there's I've seen different systems saying like having kids all day once a week, which changes the dynamic. But a lot of schools are like, I don't want to go to that because they
Yeah.
also want to keep the system how it is. And I remember we had a brand new science teacher first year, and I'll never forget this. He actually I think it was the second day, and he said, "Do you know
Okay.
why they have matches covered and you like those like match folds, right?" He said the reason
Oh yeah.
because if you open them, if oxygen hits the matches too much, they'll light on fire on their own. And we're like, what? And so he actually holds this match. And he's holding it, and we're all just sitting there waiting for it to light on fire because it's science and expecting things to blow up.
Yes.
And
Right.
then he goes, I can't believe you fell for that. And we're like, oh. And immediately I love that guy. I just was like, oh, that was so,
Yeah.
he like told, and it was interesting because I remember, I'm like, I'm not going to get better at science in this class. Like, that's not happening, but I'm not going to be as bad because I at least like him.
Yes.
Right. And he kind of like understood, like there was, I hate saying this because like a lot of people are like, oh, I could change you. There's whatever it is in my brain. I don't need to be good at science. That's just
Yes.
not for me. There's other things
Hmm.
I'm good at. There's other things I'm good at. I think science is really important.
Yeah.
It's okay. Some kids are not good at this subject as long as they walk out of school knowing something that they're good at, right? Like we
Yes.
need writers, we need, athletes, we need all of it, but not everyone has to be good at everything. And I think we
Right.
get really frustrated at that. And so when you build that connection, even when the kid struggles, a lot of times that can not necessarily make the student better, but make everyone else's life better, right?
Yeah.
And so, I know some people are like, "Oh, I could get no." There's nothing. There's
Well,
nothing you
yeah,
can
and
do
you,
for me, but like I
yeah,
could be better, but I'm not learning
and
science. Right?
you brought up
Yeah.
the last chapter of my book is all the things in my book are leading up to none of this will work
Right.
unless you build relationships.
Uh-huh.
Kids, and to quote Rita Pearson, I love her.
Yep.
Kids don't learn from people they don't like.
Uh,
Even in a job world, we don't learn to be better from bosses we don't like, right? Like in any field, right? If there's someone who you don't really feel is there for your best interest, you're not going to put in your effort. And so my biggest thing always has been, and I taught elementary as well, elementary, middle, and high school. So I've I had
yeah.
a problem with just picking different schools,
Right.
but just trying something new. But even with my from my first graders to my seniors, is if you don't build that love between you two and that respect and that trust, like that guy did with you, just coming in and seeing if he can give you a hook, just to
Yeah.
kind of let you know, like, oh, okay, just little things like that. It makes so much of a difference for those can'ts, for the won'ts, and eventually the do what I wants, because they want to be a part of a team. And I coached softball for many years, and when we have things that can anchor a kid to a school, that's better than a discipline,
Mhm.
right? So instead of this sending the kid home on suspension, things like that, let's find something that this kid's interested in and see if we can bring those to the school. And that's why I'm a big advocate for bringing back the trades.
Yeah.
Bringing back, learning how to do electrical and learning how to be an auto mechanic, and those programs that unfortunately, because of funding, a lot of times were discontinued.
Right.
And those, I believe, help those students who were not necessarily always going to be college bound, but they needed a skill. So when they left college
Yep.
or left high school, they had somewhere to go and had something to do, but it also anchored them to the school. They felt like they had a purpose for being there,
Yeah. And
because,
yeah.
you
Say
know,
words. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I, I know history was never my favorite until I got older, and then I had a teacher who told it like a story,
Right.
and I was like, oh, this is cool. And he would get very theatrical, like, and then, and we're like, oh my God, what happened? You know, I mean, it was like watching a show every day. But when you have a teacher who takes something that you're really not interested in and makes it exciting,
Mhm.
that's something. And for someone who teaches math, to have kids come up and tell you, you're my favorite class. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that's an
really?
achievement there.
That's a huge boost right there. Thank you, friend. But they're like, I love being here because you're fun. You make it easy to understand. And I'm like, I checked, did my job. Right. So, like you said, building that connection, having something that anchors them to a school that they respect and want to be a part of.
You said something and it was very subtle, but there is like it's like interesting because I keep an eye on stuff on social media, and there's this
Mm-hmm.
like little, oh, have you tried a relationship yet? And it's like a sarcastic thing, like
Right.
just do a relationship.
Yep.
And I actually see it like principals making fun of this too. And the subtle
Hmm.
thing that you said was, I guarantee you the same staff members that are complaining about that, they would hate it if they were treated the same way. That's like,
Yeah.
listen, this is your job. I don't care about you as a human being. Do your job.
Yeah.
They would be
Yeah.
livid, right? Because it's
Yeah.
even when we're getting paid to be there.
Yeah.
And what I really appreciate about how you framed it, you're not saying it is the goal, but it is the
Right.
foundation. You
Yeah.
like it's not like, hey, we built a relationship. Who cares if the kid fails? It's like, hey, if you build a relationship, the kid is more likely to be successful. It's not
Yes.
saying it's the goal. It's not the end all be all, but it's a start. Just like even massive companies, people want to feel valued. People want to feel appreciated for what they're doing. And maybe that's not their goal, but I guarantee you they will do better. The Rita Pearson comment, I bring it up all the time. And what I argue is that I don't think she's saying that you can't learn from people you don't like. I learn from people I don't like. I think
Yeah.
she's saying is that you can go so much further when you feel that person who is pushing
Yeah.
you will also
Yeah.
have your back when needed. And so that to me, I really
That's
appreciate
what
that.
I feel
Yeah,
is her situation too, because kids will go that extra mile.
yeah,
Employees will go that extra
totally,
mile.
totally.
When you have a principal who comes up and says hi to you every day, or not even every day, just says hi.
Mm,
I worked for a principal in California that I think for 3 years did not know my name.
yeah. Oh,
Because
I
every
went to
time I'd say hi, they looked at me like, you work here? And I'm like, oh my.
the school district I excelled in. I met the superintendents on the very first day. The one I struggled in, I never met them ever in 5 years.
Yeah,
And so that tells you something right there. And
yeah,
it is something that, as an employee, it mattered to me. So last
yeah.
question, and you've kind of been, referencing some things, but tell us about your book, Teach Like the Floor is on Fire. And I'm just going to say this because I would be uncomfortable saying this for myself. Uh, Jennie is a new author, and consider picking up the book. And I know like it's a big deal. It's you got a lot of value already from the podcast. So I really encourage you to check out the book. Let's support, teachers that are putting themselves out there, trying something, because I know, and like if you can, great. And if you can't, share it with somebody and hopefully they'll pick it up. So tell us a little bit about
Awesome.
the book. And,
Yeah.
what's your hope from sharing this with the world?
Well, I'll start with my hope first because that's the first thing that popped in my brain was to start there anyways. Is my hope is we need educators. We need good teachers out there. We need people who are going to help raise these generations to become self-sufficient and have great jobs and be successful. And as teachers, we teach every career out there because they leave school and they join a career. So we're preparing them for jobs that already are here, but there are also a lot of jobs that aren't even invented yet,
Mhm.
right? That we don't even have a need for yet, but we need to prepare them for that as teachers. So that's a heavy weight on our shoulders, right? But when you find that passion and you find that love to be that person who helps push them and make them feel successful, then you know you're a teacher. And my book mostly is putting out those fires, just trying to do all the things that we do on a daily basis, with positivity, with love, with a passion, and knowing that we're doing the best we can to make a difference in at least one kid's life, if not more. And the kids that we have today are not harder. They're just different. They're dealing with different world issues. They're dealing with, short attention spans. And that's why things like TikToks and YouTube videos are so pleasing to them, because it's like 5 minute spurts. Well, unfortunately, teaching doesn't teach in 5 minute spurts. So I've always said, if kids aren't learning the way we teach, then maybe we should teach to the way they learn. Right? How can we transform a classroom? And my other biggest push with this book was to, and this is one thing this is why I've run into you, George, at so many conferences, is I get called out to talk about reimagining grading and looking at more standards-based grading and what that really looks like. Because I think today grading has gotten out of control. An A is so differentiated between one teacher to the next and one school to the next, that even colleges are accepting students with 4.5, 5.0 GPAs and then realizing they can't pass the entrance exam. So what are we doing with these grades, and why have we become so fixated on a certain grading scale, right? So if we stopped looking at compliance and completion and started looking at academic mastery and learning, those grades are a little different. And so I have a big chapter about that I've been asked to write down for years as a speaker at many of these conferences. They call me out to have me talk about standards-based grading. And I have so many people who will hang out after the conference and come up to me going, do you have this written down somewhere? And so I said, well, if I ever write a book, it's going in. So give you something to look at, maybe change your academic ways. I was a traditional grader for many years, because that's how we were taught to grade, the 100 to 90 and all that stuff. And if they're missing something, it's a 0, all those things. I did them all. And I kind of wish I can go back to my first few years of teaching and apologize to my students, because I'm like, man, I am so sorry. I should not have, I don't know, just put you in that box, right? And that's the problem, is we're like, oh, you're a B student, you're a C student. And then when you start looking at how kids really learn, it's not all the same, So that was my biggest push for the book, is just to really get out there and let you know the fun, the humor. Those people out there who know me know that, I like to crack jokes and like to have fun. And so you'll probably see some of my, I guess they could be mom jokes. Because there's dad jokes, I guess there's mom jokes too. But yeah, just those teacher jokes. I really wrote it like I was sitting in the staff lounge chatting with a bunch of teachers, and we were just laughing at situations, things that come up.
And what I can tell already, Jennie, is that you have written a book that is both easy to read, but it actually has some depth to it, because sometimes easy to read with no depth, it's not going to make an impact. But sometimes when it's easy to read and you can laugh, that's when you're like getting people hooked and they're more into this, like that match analogy. So anyways, the book is listed down below. Jennie, congratulations on the book. I wish you all the best success on this. And it's been great. I'll see you around Florida sometime.
I know. Yeah. We'll bump into each other again in Orlando.
All right. Anyways, thanks for Jennie for being on the podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.
Awesome. Thank you.